So I did a thing today and I want to talk about it. I'm in the process of doing a major purge. Once again, I seem to do this about every other year, but I'm doing a major purge of my belongings. I have way too much shit. So I'm pulling stuff out of the storage unit and I'm trying to go through based on what's written on the outside to decide what to bring home. And so I brought a bunch of boxes home today, and some of them were not labeled or they were labeled as something that I wanted. And so I brought the box in. I had some surprises. So I found the pictures from my wedding in 2003 to my ex-husband. Man, I am so happy in those photos. I was completely in love. I thought I had found the one. I was so excited to make it official. It was a super tiny ceremony. We did it at Garden of the Gods in between Pulpit Rock and Kissing Camels. We actually have this adorable picture of us kissing in front of Kissing Camels. But the morning of the wedding, we were in the process of moving at that time, and the morning of the wedding, I can't find my dress shoes that I had picked out for the wedding. They had apparently gotten packed, and I had no clue where they were. So the only other white shoes that I had were platform sandals. I nearly died walking in platform sandals in the middle of Garden of the Gods. Granted, I don't know that the high heels would have been any better. But so much happy memories from that day. That night after the reception and we said goodnight to our parents and everything, we headed to, we had just gotten a hotel room downtown to, feel like it was different from any other night. And we had heard that there was a big DJ that was going to be playing at the Underground, which was just a couple blocks away from our hotel. So we were like, yeah, absolutely. Let's dump our stuff in the hotel room. Let's get to the bar. Let's hang out with our friends. Well, when we show up, this had been a really small, quiet wedding. So a lot of our friends knew that we were long-term partners or we were engaged or something, but they didn't know that today was our wedding. So we get there and, everyone's asking us how we are and we're like, we got married. And so everyone buys us shots. Everyone. By the end of the night, we had consumed together about $300 worth of alcohol. How we did not have alcohol poisoning, I will never know. Maybe it was the really big dinner that we had at the reception dinner beforehand. Anyways, we had to lean on each other in order to stay upright and stagger back to our hotel that night. So unlike a lot of people, we did not have sex on our wedding night. And oh God, that day was such a beautiful, happy day. And even though that marriage ended, even though there were some very bad times ahead in that relationship, I will never let go of how happy that day was. I'm not going to let other things cloud that day of pure joy. And I think that it can be easy when you are healing from trauma to not want to think about any of those times because a lot of them were bad. But man, if you can find that happy, if you can find that joy and tap into and know, hey, I had that too. Because even now, I have supremely shitty days. I have been in another manic episode, so, it's been a rough one this week. But I know that I have days of joy. And that's what I live for, you know? We have those shining moments of connection and enjoyment and, you know, and I just won't let, things that are upsetting me steal my joy. So on that side of things, I also found my KJV Bible that I was given when I believe I was 8 years old, and it was for my 5th spiritual birthday. I think, pretty sure I had it before we moved to Salida. But anyways, that was my trusty Bible. Like, I took it everywhere. I read it obsessively. I mean, I still have it to this day, and I'm going to turn 42 in a couple of months. So I've had this sucker for a long time. And so it is obviously falling apart. In high school, the cover was coming off, so I used black duct tape, of all things, to hold it together. At this point, the pages have come completely separate from the cover, so you just got to be real careful about it. The first several pages where like the dedication and stuff are, that's gone. But my little ribbon bookmark was in Matthew at the temptation of Jesus. That feels accurate for the last time I looked at this Bible. I also found my cheat sheet for witnessing. They had all kinds of, scripture that go to common questions that are asked, what is the exact plan of salvation, and blah, 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 blah. What's funny is that it's like 3/4 in French, because I was in 3rd year French when I wrote it. And what's cool is I still remember all of it. I immediately was like, oh, the very top in very big letters, I had, I must be a crown for my husband. I apparently was either very firmly believing it or trying very hard to make myself believe it. And I kind of thumbed through some of the pages, and there were some verses in Isaiah that were underlined that had to do with the Lord giving us strength. And I had a bunch of extra little bookmarks in there. Galatians and Ephesians are pretty much falling out. So clearly I read those a lot. It's on the one hand, it's triggering, because obvious reasons. But, at the same time, those verses that I underlined, the ones that I bookmarked, those were helpful for me at one point in time. Telling myself over and over and over again that God gives us strength, that God will get us through, that God does not give us anything that we are not capable of handling. And as much as I did not want to be strong, as much as I did not want to have to be capable, I knew that I did. And so I can't even describe to you the number of nights when I would be reciting those over and over and over in my head as I cried. That was just such a turbulent time. And that's crazy to say, because I have had a very turbulent year. But man, the internal turmoil that I had back then, because even with the manic episodes, I'm aware that I'm delusional. I'm aware that I am derealizing and disassociating. I realize that I'm having panic attacks and stuff. So, I'm cognizant that I am experiencing these symptoms, but I know what they are and I know how to handle them. And I have a care team that is amazing and takes great care of me. Back then, I didn't think I had anybody. I truly thought I was completely alone. So when I met my husband and thought I had found the one, it was a really big deal. So the joy that I felt that day, I am so glad that 21-year-old me had that day of joy, had those years of joy with him as I began my deconstruction process, because I didn't have the support that I have right now. The amazing people that God has brought into my life. And I know that while that marriage had an expiration date, it doesn't mean it was always bad. It doesn't mean that it wasn't helpful for me. It was so good for me in that moment. It's just that after a while that chapter closed and I needed to move on, and I couldn't do that with him. Okay. Confession time. About once a year, I go stalk his Instagram. All he does, it's so funny. All he does is post pictures of different craft beers that he drinks, which is quintessentially him. He hasn't changed. But it's nice to know that he's still out there, because I'm grateful for him. Sometimes I wish things could have turned out differently, but at the same time, I know that there were just fundamental incompatibilities, and I would have to be a completely different person to not have run into those issues, and I like who I am. Today was a lot. It's a lot of emotions, and I'm just eternally grateful that those verses in Isaiah do turn out to be true. He does give us the strength, and he does make us capable. I think the Buddha was right that life is suffering, because we're all going through it in one way or another. There is also a Bible verse that says, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are good for me. I think that there are a lot of things that are lawful for various people, that are helpful for them or necessary for them, but they're not necessarily good for me. And moving into that gray area of A and B can both be right. It's hard to adjust to that kind of thinking when you've spent decades in just black and white, good and evil, right and wrong, yes and no, man and woman. It's hard to move into those gray areas. Now wish me luck while I try to fall asleep.